Oh, hey there. Can we just have a quick chat about all the stuff that's been going on in the UFC and MMA over the last week or so? Obviously, I placed some terrible bets on the last fight card that was on. There wasn't one on last weekend, which I forgot. I thought it was on last weekend, so I went to put some bets on it. It's a whole thing. Either way, it was Ben Rothwell, the heavyweights. Ben Rothwell was back in there. You had the main event, Cody Garbrandt against Rob Font. So I put some terrible bets on there. There's been loads happening in the world of kind of combat sports and MMA. So I'm going to go into all of that. I'm going to give you my take on it. It's usually got a little bit of a laugh in there as well. So do me a favour, if you're watching this, just like and subscribe for me. And that's all I'll ask you to do, because it helps me out massively. And I hope you enjoy. So let's just get started with Big Ben Rothwell, right? I'm a huge fan of this dude. I had a bet on Big Ben Rothwell to get into the win column. It wasn't exactly fucking Nostradamus over here, like just stipulating that Ben Rothwell would win, because he's fighting a guy. It was the other dude's UFC debut. There wasn't really a lot of information on him. He was, a Taekwondo. Well, he trained at a place called like Barnett's Taekwondo School. So, again, using my powers of deduction, I thought, yeah, probably a Taekwondo guy. Turns out he was, right? And he's this big fat guy who's just surprisingly agile. He was actually, but the problem is you need more than just a Superman punch over and over again and a check left hook to try and beat Ben Rothwell. Ben Rothwell is a savvy enough fighter to kind of get wise to that, and he did. And yeah, he beat the fuck out of him. He really, at a certain point, I was just like, how is Barnett still standing at this point? It was ridiculous. Now, I was a moron because, well, no, you know what? I still stand by my bet. Ben Rothwell should have knocked the dude out, but he ended up getting the submission instead. Now, I knew that Rothwell had submission skills, but, watch that fight, right? There are some points where it's like, the referee surely's got to step in here, because it's like, Rothwell was just teeing off on him, and there was nothing coming back. He was just taking it was just like, it wasn't like over and over, but there was just, you could tell there was no way that guy was getting in that fight. And then, it went to the floor, and Rothwell got a really great choke, which fucked my bet up, because I had the knockout, because, fucking pissed. But yeah, either way, like I said, no disrespect to Barnett. Obviously, he needs to kind of do a little bit of work, because you need to bring a little bit more to the table to beat guys of the caliber of Ben Rothwell. But big respect to him, because he came in, for his first fight in the UFC to fight someone like Ben Rothwell. Ben Rothwell's legit, man. And yeah, for him to come in and fight him straight away, and he went down swinging. So hats off to both men. And who's next for Ben Rothwell, I hear you ask? Well, I think that probably Vandera is probably going to be next. He's going to be, it was another fight on that card that I'll be going into next. He actually called him out, and I saw that on the Believe You Me podcast. I think that makes sense. Ben Rothwell said they haven't made the fight yet, but he does take call-outs personally. I think he was having a bit of fun, but he was like, he was a really nice guy. We had a nice chat beforehand, but obviously he called me out, and I take that shit personally. So, Ben Rothwell's a scary dude, man. Like, Jesus. But yeah, anyway. So I also had Justin Taffer versus Jared Vandera. This one was a slightly better bet. This was my pick of the week, I think. Just because Vandera was coming in as an underdog against Justin Taffer. Now, don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed Justin Taffer's work, because these are heavyweights, man. Justin Taffer is thicker than a Snickers. He's only about 5'5". No, he's taller than that, but he's short. He's short and stocky. My point is, now this was a great fight, by the way. If you haven't watched this fight, go back and watch Justin Taffer versus Jared Vandera, right? Because it was an absolute barn burner. It was blood everywhere. It was exactly what you want from an MMA fight. Blood everywhere, sloppy punches being thrown, wonderful stuff. And and also, obviously I had the bet on Vandera, just because, no disrespect to Justin Taffer, but he is perfectly beatable. Now, that fight could have gone either way, really, but when a fight can go either way like that, and you've got one guy coming in as a sizable underdog, you got to take it, which I did. So I was happy. Boom. Not terrible bet. Vandera, he as I mentioned previously, he has called out Ben Rothwell. I think Ben Rothwell fustigate him, but it's the fight to make, because Ben Rothwell needs to get a little cheeky win streak going, and it won't be too many wins before Ben Rothwell is back in the conversation again. I would love to see Ben Rothwell go all the way to the title, but also, adversely, he's a big feather in Vandeira's cap. So that is the fight to make. Jared Vandeira versus Ben Rothwell. Make that fight happen. We also had Jack Hermansson taking on Edmund Shabazian. Now, I bought into the hype. Well, I didn't at first, right? Against Brunson, I bet on Brunson. Brunson, believe it or not, against Shabazian came in as an underdog. And I was like, that is fucking insane. That is mental. Shabazian's not that good yet. And I was right because, because Brunson won that fight, relatively comfortably. Now, I thought Shabazian would look a lot better against Hermansson because I just thought in the stand-up he would be better technically. To a certain extent, I was right, but Hermansson is just too good of a fighter overall, and he took the fight to the ground. He just dominated really, and Shabazian, he has got some work to do. The problem is with being as good as Shabazian, is a double-edged sword because you're just getting put in against killer after killer after killer. I mean, look at it, right? Because he starts Brad Tavares. Now, don't get me wrong, that is no mean feat. Brad Tavares is a decent fighter. He's a very good fighter, and Shabazian smashed him. Absolutely smashed him. Problem is, from that point, you've then got the hype behind you because you were Ronda Rousey's fucking judo bag that she threw around, and now you're just getting killer after killer after killer, and you're getting loss after loss after loss, and it's a good learning experience because he's only young. He is only young. He could well be a champion in the future. His striking is fantastic. He needs to work on the ground game. I think the next fight for him should be Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland would be wonderful because that could be just a loser goes to ONE FC, couldn't it? Fantastic. Do you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, they both need to get a win, and I think arguably both of them are on the cusp to having to try out a different organisation to see how that pans out, and then maybe come back to the UFC. Probably better for Shabazian to do that than Holland because he's considerably younger, I think. I mean, I'm not basing that on anything other than what I think. So, yeah. Font versus Garbrandt. Now, this was an interesting one because, once again, old Burt used his noggin. And he said Font is going to use his reach, he's going to pop that jab, and he's going to win this fight. He's going to come in as the underdog against Cody Garbrandt, and that is exactly what happened. So sometimes, look, they're not terrible bets. Do you know what I mean? I like to call them terrible bets because it's like it's giving me a built-in excuse, isn't it? It's like, I'm doing that shit thing where it's like, yeah, I'm going to call this bet terrible even though I quite like it. Just so that if it doesn't pan out, people can't call me stupid. People call me stupid anyway, who cares? But either way, yeah, Rob Font looked fantastic. Do you know what I mean? He stuck behind that jab. He used his reach. He just looked better in every area, really. And, that sucks for Garbrandt because Garbrandt, he was at the tippy top. He beat Dominic Cruz. He was the champion. And since then, he lost twice to Dillashaw, and then he bounced back against the Sansao, but now he's lost this one. This isn't the end of the road for Garbrandt. Garbrandt is a star, man. He is a star. He's got the whole package. At the end of the day, he will come back from this better, and I'm not taking it like, at the end of the day, it wasn't that Garbrandt looked bad, it's just that Rob Font just looked so good. What's next for Rob Font? It's a tricky division, this. I'll tell you why. It's because Sterling's obviously had surgery, so he's out for a bit. Peter Yan is going to be waiting for Sterling to get back because he feels he's owed that title match, and rightly so, because he only lost his belt on a technicality. Who else is there, really? You've got Sanhagen versus TJ Dillashaw, that's coming up. Font could very well take on the loser of that matchup because the winner would surely go on to either fight Peter Yan or Sterling, you would have thought. Possibly Frankie Edgar. Edgar would be a good fight. I don't think that Font has fought Edgar yet. And Edgar's still a big name in the sport, and I think he's only one rank behind Rob Font. And yeah, at the end of the day, that could be a pretty decent fight, to be fair. Yeah, for me, Frankie Edgar all day. That would be a decent fight, and it might be a step back in the rankings, but it's still a step up in names. Does that make sense? Yeah, not really. But either way, those were all the fights. They were really good, actually. The main event was really good, and like I said, go back and watch Justin Taffer against Jared Vandeira. If you didn't see it already, it's a really good fight. And yeah, so, right, we'll have a look at the news. So, we've got Paul Felder retiring. Paul Felder announces retirement on that card. And you know what? Fair play to him. Good for him. He is a great commentator. Now, he's possibly a better commentator than fighter. Now, I say that. I don't say that kind of roasting him either. Like, I'm not saying he was a bad fighter. He wasn't. Far from it. He was, what, top 6 in the world? That's crazy. That is crazy good. But whilst he was top 6 in the world in fighting, he is easily top 2 or 3 in commentating. So that I say that like I said, I'm not even saying that kind of like, oh, you're a better commentator than fighter. No, what I'm saying is, unbelievably, you're an even better commentator than you were a fighter. And you were a phenomenal fighter. So, do you know what I mean? Good for you, man. That's fucking awesome, because I have so much time for Paul Felder on that commentary desk. He is fucking awesome. I'm sorry this is turning into a Paul Felder love fest. I'm not even sorry. Sorry, not sorry. But yeah, no, good for Paul Felder, man. Like, he deserves it thoroughly. He's gotten out. He seems like he's got everything fairly intact. He lost a part of his lung, but you don't need 2 full lungs unless you're running triathlons and shit, which is actually what he plans on doing. So yeah, I mean, best of luck in the triathlons with 1.5 lungs. Is there any chance there's like a 1.5 lung event you could enter? That would be better, wouldn't it? I mean, it kind of feels like the rest of these 2-lunged motherfuckers have a little bit of an unfair advantage over the dragon, the Irish dragon. Tell you what, Paul, I think you should. They should give you some sort of It seems like they've got an advantage. You know, maybe you could shoot them in the chest with a starter pistol or something. I don't know if that's what they do. They might, but yeah. So at the end of the day, I'm glad for him because he's an excellent commentator and a brilliant analyst, and I love seeing him on that desk. I'm going to miss seeing him fight because he's an exciting fighter. He had so many fantastic fights. He always stepped into the octagon prepared, put on exciting fights, some great main events. The octagon will miss him for sure, but not too much because he's going to be right there on the desk and he's only going to get more and more involved on that side. And yeah, I can't wait to see how his commentary evolves even further and yeah, everything like that. So anyway, enough of the love fest for Paul Felder. I'll move on to the next bit now. But yeah, just best of luck to him. Yeah, that's awesome. So this is some boxing news because I do cover other bits of combat sports as well. So if you don't know by now, you must know. Fury versus AJ is off and Wilder is back on because a US arbitrator, shock, a US court found in favour of Deontay Wilder. Oh, what a fucking surprise. Look, at the end of the day, Deontay was given an opportunity to sign that fucking contract, to have that rematch, right? And he declined. Do you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, now, as soon as there was another fight made, now he wants to fucking throw a spanner in the works. And he's fucked up, possibly the biggest boxing match of the last fucking 20 years or whatever. Because, Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury, that is the boxing match to make. It is. It's not Wilder versus Fury 3. At the end of the day, they didn't make money on the second one. Do you know what I mean? They didn't make money on the rematch because they overpaid their fighters. This is another thing that gets me as well. It's tell me more about how the UFC pay so shit and how they need to focus more on the boxing model. Nobody made money on Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury 2. They had, I can't remember what his name is, Anthony something. I do apologize, but either way, he was on the Believe You Me podcast. Go and check that out. It's brilliant. But he was talking about how nobody in that on that event made money except for Deontay and Fury because they were grossly overpaid, and that's what happens in boxing. So tell me more about how great the boxing model is. Do you know what I mean? It's all fucking run by gambling syndicates and shit anyway. I don't know how they make money, but none of it's legal. It's all fucking corrupt. But anyway, the UFC have made a sustainable model, and that's where I'll leave it. But either way, from a fan perspective, it's kind of pointless, isn't it? Fury versus Wilder 3. Because at the end of the day, the first fight, okay, it was a draw, but I don't really see how it was. I was surprised when they called it a draw, because it was basically Fury outboxed him for the entire fight. And then in round 10, he got a knockdown, then he got another one in round 12. So, arguably, he maybe won 2 rounds out of the whole fight. So I understand how that's a draw. He might have got a knockdown, but Fury got up. So how is that scored? I don't Don't get that. And then the second fight was not close. It wasn't even fucking competitive. And I don't see the third fight being competitive, which is why Tyson Fury is just said, okay, then fine, I'll smash you, and then I'll smash Anthony Joshua. I'll just quickly smash. But that's a dangerous thing, isn't it? Because if he's just going to be looking past Deontay Wilder, maybe Deontay's made the right improvements. God damn, am I talking myself into this fight? I'm talking myself into being excited for this fight. Maybe it's not pointless after all. Oh, fuck it, it's heavyweight boxing. Of course I'm going to tune in. Of course I'll tune in. You know what I mean? Maybe Deontay has made the right changes, made the right adjustments, but probably not. That would be my assessment. That is my dumbed down layman assessment of Fury versus Deontay Wilder 3. But yeah, gutted that it's not going to be Anthony Joshua versus Fury in Abu Dhabi. I was looking forward to that one. But yeah, in other boxing news, we have got Tyron Woodley stepping up to take on Jake Paul in boxing. And I'll tell you what, at a certain point, you've got to start kind of respecting Jake Paul, haven't you? I mean, at the end of the day, right, all boxers pad their records. Luis Gomez, because I thought this, you know, beforehand, and Luis Gomez on the Believe You Me podcast, like, said it. He put it really. He said it best, you know. But Lewis said it best when he was talking about, you know, all boxers pad their records. Because I thought, because people were talking about, oh, but you know, Jake Paul's just fighting bums. It's like, yeah. But all boxers fight bums at the start of their career, don't they? All of them. They're all fucking bums. And all he's doing is just making money off those. What's he supposed to do? Like fighting smoker fights? Like whatever. No, at the end of the day, he's learning on the job. He's calling out the right people because they're going to be at his skill level. And his skills are going to go up and up and up. And you know what? If he trains hard enough, like, he can start doing some things. And you know, I think Tyron Woodley flatlines him because people keep saying, oh, well, you know, Jake Paul just keeps on picking on, like, smaller guys. So, okay, Woodley was a welterweight, but come on, the dude walks around about 200. He must do. Look at the size of his legs. He's got 200 pounds in his legs alone. So, yeah, I just think that, look, Tyron Woodley, he's good. He was known for knocking people flat. His time is good. His footwork's good. I think that this is where Jake Paul gets exposed. I think that Tyron Woodley's going to hit him. He's going to hit him hard. I don't think that Jake Paul's going to like it. But either way, respect to Jake Paul for actually fighting somebody who is actually dangerous this time. And respect to Tyron Woodley for going out there and making a big payday now that he's parted ways with the UFC. I said a couple of weeks ago that that's the fight to make. It is the fight to make. It makes sense for everybody. And yeah, you know what? It's interesting enough that it's like, okay, you know, maybe Jake Paul is better than we think, and he makes Woodley look bad. What if he dances around him? But I don't think that Woodley loses that fight unless he's paid to take a dive, which, after watching the first, like, Triller event, I would say is not completely outside the realms of possibility, is it? There's a lot of shady shit going on over there. But let's move on to Troll of the Week. What I like to do is just round up some of the funniest memes that I've seen this week. And yeah, this week's really good. So this one, we've got, basically, it's Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley have agreed to a boxing match. And you've got, I think it's like Damon Wayne or one of the Wayans brothers. I get them all mixed up. But it's through the film White Chicks, and he's just got, like, yeah, he's supposed to be Jake Paul on the left. And you've got Robert Downey Jr., who was in Tropic Thunder, who was blacked up on the right. So you've got, yeah, and they made that as like a mock-up poster, really. So I don't know, made me laugh. It's just anything with that involves kind of Tropic Thunder and White Chicks. I laugh. So yeah, then we have got Tyron Woodley versus Jake Paul. It's another Tyron Woodley versus Jake Paul one, right? So it's literally Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. The loser stops rapping. The winner also stops rapping. Because, let's face it, both their rapping, I mean, their rapping's better than mine, but fucking hell, it's pretty awful. Woo! Yeah, it's some fucking awful shit right there. Yeah, it's good. It's good memeage. Loving that. So, yeah, then you got this one. This one cracked me up. You got Dana White. They photoshopped, like, I don't know, Dana White's face onto someone with, like, long hair and glasses. And it just says, this dude walks into your local bar and starts asking you if you have any illegal UFC streaming links. What would you do? And it's just like, yeah, shit. You know, it's like Dana White's fucking going in disguise into bars trying to fucking catch people. And then You got the last one. This one really cracked me up because it's from Muhammad Ali's Twitter account, right? And yeah, fucking, this is courtesy of the Sport Rag, I think. I can't even see what that says, but either way, yeah, the Sport Rag. And yeah, so Deontay Wilder's new trainer's come out and he said, Muhammad Ali is one of my greatest fighters of all time. He was very magical. He was very, he said very was magical, but I assume he meant to say he was very magical in the ring. But it was the things he did outside of the ring that truly got my attention. Deontay Wilder is the closest thing to that in this time. And Muhammad Ali comments on it, says, hey, Malik King Scott, I rose from the dead just to tell you that to never compare me to that flamingo-legged bum ever again. And that wasn't a very good, I mean, I wasn't even trying to do a Muhammad Ali impression. That sounded more like Apollo Creed. It's like, hey, Malik King Scott, I rose from the dead just to tell you to never compare me to that Lucky Club fighter. And that's all he was, Lucky, that flamingo-legged motherfucker ever again. Sorry, that's me ad-libbing. But yeah, either way, fucking hilarious. That cracked me up. But yeah, that is literally all I have time for. So, I'm going to be looking at the event coming up this weekend. It's going to be on Friday. It's Rosenstruik versus Augusto Sakai, the big old heavyweights. Let's see if Biggie Boy can get back into the win column. And yeah, so like I said, all my social media stuff is all up here. If you want to send me like, no, any trolls of the week that you think are funny, that you think of that you think are worth putting on, if you just come and support me on my Patreon, there is a link in the banner, or you can go to the address that's on all the clips that I put onto YouTube anyway. But yeah, these videos are like, you know, they're up for a week on Patreon before they drop onto YouTube, and the fight predictions are exclusively on Patreon on the Friday and then they drop onto YouTube on the Saturday. So, yeah, like I said, until next time, keep those odds long and those bets terrible.